Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Puri Rajakacharya Ashtotara Satashri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mayi Ki Jai Jamuna Mayi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, and welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. It is Tuesday, April 8th, 2025 in New York. And today we're starting with Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 13, and starting today with text number 6. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maitreya Uvacha. Dhruvasya Chotkala Putra. Pitari Prastite Vanam. Sarvabhauma Shriyang Naitchad. Adhirajasanang Pituhu. The great sage Maitreya replied, "My dear Vidura, when Maharaj Dhruva departed for the forest, his son, Utkala, did not desire to accept the opulent throne of his father, which was meant for the ruler of all the lands of this planet." Thank you, Praveen Krishna Prabhu, for posting the verses. Text 7. Sajanmano pashantatma nisangaha samadarshanaha Dadarsha loke vitatam atmanam lokamatmani. From his very birth, Utkala was fully satisfied and unattached to the world. He was equipoised, where he could see everything resting in the Supersoul, and the Supersoul present in everyone's heart. The symptoms and characteristics of Utkala, the son of Maharaj Dhruva, are those of a Mahabhagavata. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 6:30, Yomang pashyati sarvatra sarvang chamayi pashyati. A highly advanced devotee sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead everywhere. And he also sees everything resting in the Supreme. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9:4, Maya titam idang sarvang jagadavyaktamurtina. Lord Krishna is spread all over the universe in his impersonal feature. Everything is resting on him, but that does not mean that everything is he himself. A highly advanced Mahabhagavata devotee sees in this spirit. He sees the same Supersoul, Paramatma, existing within everyone's heart, regardless of discrimination based on the different material forms of the living entities. He sees everyone as part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Mahabhagavata, who experiences the Supreme Godhead's presence everywhere, is never missing from the sight of the Supreme Lord, nor is the Supreme Lord ever lost from his sight. This is possible only when one is advanced in love of Godhead. Om Jnana Timidantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So many things could be said about this pair of verses describing the son of Maharaj Dhruva. Prabhupada mostly focuses on this vision of Utkala in his purport about him seeing Krishna everywhere, being equipoised, and so on. Srila Vishwanath, in his very brief commentary on this, says that essentially Utkala was a jnani. That's all he says, actually. But what we see here is an example of someone whose qualities match those of a brahmana, and whose Anyway, these are the qualities that we hear about. He may have had other qualities as well that are not specified or enumerated in these verses. So we get a synopsized bio of Maharaj Utkala, but he didn't want to be a Maharaj, actually. He just wanted to not be the king. And as we'll read a little bit later, he was serious. And we hear other instances in the Bhagavatam of persons who are qualified and in line to be king and do not want to be that. I think of Maharaj Priyavrata. There is an example of him. Of course, Arjuna, probably the most famous example of someone who is qualified to rule and decided not to. But in this case, we don't hear about Krishna coming to personally intervene and insist that Utkala take up the throne. He's a different case. Krishna deals with different people in different ways at different times. Maharaj, would you like to say something about this?
Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadama Yam Dadhati Shapadantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamanam Shri Guru Vaishnavamstra Shri Rupam Shahagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sapivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Pavijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamstra He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kam Shana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kopatarubhyascha Papa Sindhu Pyevacha Pitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare. Well, Janmana, that's the first thing that comes to my attention, that Utkal had these qualities from birth. He didn't acquire them by practice, by sadhana, by sadhu sangha, but from birth. He was born as the son of Dhruva Maharaj, and clearly he was born to be absorbed in Krishna consciousness and no other business. Shuchinam Srimate Atava Yoginam Eva Kule Pavati Timata. So Janmana and Upashanta, peaceful completely, and Nishanga, detached, and Samadarshana. Here's why he's Samadarshana. He sees Krishna everywhere, equally. Wherever he looks, he sees Krishna. So this is real equal vision, to see Krishna everywhere. And Prabhupada quotes, Yoman Pashyati Sarvatra, Sarvam Cha Mayi Pashyati, Tasyaham Na Pranashami, Sachamena Pranashyati. For such a devotee, Krishna is never lost, and the devotee is never lost to Krishna. This intimate relationship is there because of love for Krishna. The Darshe, and Prabhupada, as you rightly say, he emphasized seeing the vision that Utkal had, because that's what we find in the verse, how Utkal is seeing Krishna under all circumstances. The purport from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur to the previous verse is relevant. The question had been, Vidura had asked about the Prachetas because Narad Muni had glorified Dhruva Maharaj in the assembly of the Prachetas, sacrificial arena, I think, of the Prachetas. So Vidura asked, who are these Prachetas? So Maitreya is beginning to answer, but he's answering by describing the appearance of the Prachetas in the dynasty of Dhruva Maharaj. Since the Prachetas were born in Dhruva's dynasty, the story of the Prachetas will appear in the narration of Dhruva's descendants. The description is for that purpose. So that's why we're hearing about Utkal. We're going to be hearing a fair amount of dynastic narration in coming verses, who's born of whom. And this is why we're coming gradually to the Prachetas. Hare Krishna.
Jai Maharaj, thank you so much. Praveen Krishna Prabhu offers something in the chat. Sarva bhuteshu ya pashyet bhagavad bhavam atmanaha bhutani bhagavat yatmani esha bhagavatottamaha. The most advanced devotee can see within everything the soul of all souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Consequently, he sees systematically everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, and understands that everything that exists is eternally situated within the Lord.
Nice. Robert also would often quote Stavra Jangama Ekina Deki Dhamamurti in Chaitanya Charitamrita. The pure devotee, whether he sees something moving or non-moving, moving entities, non-moving entities, he doesn't exactly see them. He sees his worshipable Ishtadeva. He sees Krishna everywhere. And many verses to this point. And thank you, Praveen.
Any comments from your local assembly there, Maharaj?
Any comments from the local assembly? No.
I had maybe a question, or something struck me that these qualities that we hear about in Utkala, we don't hear about his chivalrous qualifications. We hear that he's equipoised, he sees everything equally because he sees the super soul everywhere. And it occurred to me that maybe those qualities aren't so suitable for someone who's destined to accept the throne, because as a king, you have to mete out punishment and reward and do a lot of diplomacy and stuff. And somebody who's equipoised they may have not so much energy to deal with that sort of thing. Does that sound wrong?
Yeah, it's clear that he's not meant for this. He's a sadhu. He's not attached. He has no passions. He sees everything equally. And he's not interested. He's nisanga. You'd think at least, well, whatever you might think, he just wasn't interested. Here you have the control of the whole world, and even if a Kshatriya is not materialistic, you'd think, well, okay, all right, I can control this for the service of Krishna. I could control this for the service of Krishna. What an opportunity. This is a person, he might be selfless, but still he wants to be temple president so that he can straighten out the temple and make things go and expand the preaching and so on. He doesn't have to be materially attached to think that way. He wants the post for service. But Utkal had no interest. No interest at all. He left. And that we'll find in the next verse, I think, that he just, anyway, it's clear he just wasn't interested in the throne.
Another thought occurs, Maharaj, that the symptom of the Mahabhagavata is that he sees everyone as serving Krishna better than he himself is. And so for someone born in a royal family who's next in line for the throne, to have that quality is like, everything's going on great. What does the throne need me for? There's no need. I'm leaving. Everybody is fine.
Yeah, everything's Krishna's arrangement. So therefore the Brahmins are not meant to rule. They don't have the qualities. A Kshatriya is not meant to do business. And so on. Everyone has a certain tendency, a certain natural inclination to work in a certain way. You put a college professor into business, he's not, a philosopher. I mean, now college professors may be very much into business, but a philosopher isn't interested in business opportunities. He's interested in philosophy. And similarly, businessmen usually aren't interested in philosophy. They're interested in, how can we monetize this? So we have some water here. If you'd like some water. And this is very strong. You see people who have a natural tendency to serve in a particular way or to act in a particular way, and they're not going to be. We saw that with Dhruva Maharaj. Narad Muni is preaching to him, and yeah, I know that what you're saying is right, but it doesn't stand in my heart. It doesn't fit for me. I'm a Kshatriya. I want a kingdom. I know you're right, but because he's a Kshatriya. So Kshatriya has to have that. Then Krishna told that to Arjuna also. If you leave the battlefield, you'll come back anyway, and still you'll fight, because that's your nature. You're a warrior. You may go and pretend, now I'll be a sadhu, I'll go to the forest. You'll show up on a battlefield again, because that's your nature. So the varnashram system is arranged in such a way that people will be engaged according to their nature. And clearly it wasn't Utkal's nature to rule. He's beyond the Brahminical nature. He's situated he's beyond this world, really. The affairs of the world don't interest him. Hare Krishna.
Radhesha Prabhu, did you have something? Or then might you like to read our text 8 and 9?
Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't have anything except that I really like Utkal. It's so wonderful to see someone who has so much at his fingertips, and he's just, no thanks. I'll just act mad instead. People, even the senior advisors we're gonna see soon, they just think, oh, he's mad, he's not fit for ruling. All right. Text 8.
6 of the 6 opulences, renunciation is very attractive. Yes, carry on.
Atmanam Brahma Nirvanam Pratyastamita Vigraham Avabodharasaikatmyam Anandam Anusantatam Avyavachinna Yogagni Dagda Karma Malashaya Swarupam Avarundhano Natmanonyam Tadaikshata. By expansion of his knowledge of the Supreme Brahman, he had already attained liberation from the bondage of the body. This liberation is known as nirvana. He was situated in transcendental bliss and he continued always in that blissful existence, which expanded more and more. This was possible for him by continual practice of bhakti yoga, which is compared to fire because it burns away all dirty material things. He was always situated in his constitutional position of self-realization, and he could not see anything else but the Supreme Lord and himself engaged in discharging devotional service. These two verses explain the verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Nashochati Nakankshati Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labhate Param. One who is transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed towards every living entity. In that state, he achieves pure devotional service unto me. This is also explained by Lord Chaitanya in his Shikshashtaka in the beginning of the first verse. Cheto darpanamarjanam bhavamahadavagni nirvapanam shreya kairava chandrika vitaranam vidyavadhu jivanam. The Bhakti Yoga system is the topmost yoga system. And in this system, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the foremost performance of devotional service. By chanting the holy name, one can attain the perfection of nirvana, or liberation from material existence, and so increase one's blissful life of spiritual existence as described by Lord Chaitanya, Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. When one is situated in that position, he no longer has any interest in material opulence or even a royal throne and sovereignty over the whole planet. This situation is called Viraktiranyatra Syat. It is the result of devotional service. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Gurudasa Jayadvaita Swami Niti Namine. Maybe I'll just take a quick pause here, otherwise all the points start to get merged, and we are personalists after all. I particularly noted Srila Prabhupada's comment here that in that position of ever expanding bliss and devotional service, vardhana, increasing, anandam buddhi vardhana, one no longer has any interest in material opulence or even a royal throne and sovereignty over the whole planet. It kind of feels like a little poke at his father's former aspirations, Utkal, by his previous good works or by the blessings of having come in as the son of a father who already went through it for him. He doesn't have to go through that. He's not interested at all in material opulence or sovereignty over the whole world. And Srila Prabhupada focuses here on this nirvana. And of course, we got Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary previously that Utkal is more or less a jnani. But Srila Prabhupada is, everything becomes Krishnaized with the Maha Mantra. Srila Prabhupada takes it immediately to the platform of chanting Hare Krishna to attain nirvana, not being situated in some yogic trance. Yogi yunjita satatam atma rahasi stitaha. He's situated alone in some lonely place performing yoga. That's more or less the image we have, in the 6th chapter. And Arjuna says, oh, that's, too difficult. Because this platform of yoga is so impossible to achieve on our own, being situated in a lonely place. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada often condemned that practice. And so this chanting of Hare Krishna, especially public chanting of Hare Krishna, sharing that bliss with everyone else, is our quickest route to nirvana. Any comments here, Gurmaj, before I continue with the purport?
Labhante Brahmanirvanam Rishikshina Komasha Chinnadvaidhaya Tatmana Sarvabhuta Hite Rita. The Brahmanirvana, not the Shunya Nirvana of the Buddhists, but the oneness of the Jnani, who accepts the existence of the absolute truth, Brahma Nirvana, or the devotee who's achieved the perfection of knowledge, Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate. The Nirvana is generally associated with Buddhist thought, at least in, what would you say, the minds of the practitioners and the certain crowd of spiritual aspirants. But this nirvana is found in the Bhagavad Gita in a more reasonable form, a more certainly a more congenial form, a form that has a form, first of all, in the Buddhist conception. There's nirvana means essentially a snuffing out of all personal identity, all illusion, and everything is illusion. So everything gets snuffed out essentially. But here, Brahma Nirvana, one keeps one's identity, aham brahmasmi, but one is situated. The fire of material existence is snuffed out. Hare Krishna.
Can I make one?
Yes, my poor Chandra.
You say everything is illusion for those voidist. Even nirvana is also illusion.
Even nirvana is illusion. Yeah, well, it gets to be sort of, yes. You don't quite have to. That gets rather, what would you say, sort of a linguistic argument. But yeah, even nothing really exists, nothing ever did exist. It's just our attachment to mind, body, and so on that makes things seem to exist. Very bleak philosophy in its original form. Hare Krishna.
I'm not sure if it was in this Sangha or another, but in the past few days I was hearing that even the term Brahman, it's just pointing us toward that direction, but they won't even accept that it has a name. The fact that we're calling it Brahman is just a reference point, but actually it's nameless.
Yeah, I heard Parshad Prabhu making that point. It's sort of a placeholder, because Brahman can't be described. It has no name, it has no form, it has no qualities, it has no any of that. So Brahman just sort of points to what we're talking about, but it's not really the name of Brahman, because Brahman has no name and so on. Yes, just as you said. That would limit the Brahman would be limited if it had a name. It's beyond all these things.
All right. Continuing with the purport. The more one makes advancement in devotional service, the more one becomes detached from material opulence and material activity. This is the spiritual nature, full of bliss. This is also described in Bhagavad Gita, Param Drishva Nivartate. One ceases to take part in material enjoyment upon tasting superior, blissful life and spiritual existence. By advancement in spiritual knowledge, which is considered to be like blazing fire, all material desires are burned to ashes. The perfection of mystic yoga is possible when one is continuously in connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead by discharging devotional service. A devotee is always thinking of the Supreme Person at every step of his life. Every conditioned soul is full of the reactions of his past life, but all dirty things are immediately burned to ashes if one simply executes devotional service. This is described in the Narada Pancharatra, Sarvopadi Vinirmuktam Tatparatvena Nirmalam. So that's the description of bhakti. defining bhakti, to serve the senses of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and not our own senses, two things happen simultaneously. All the upadis are kicked out, and tatparatvena nirmalam. And we become engaged in the Lord's service. Satatam kirtayanto mam. Instead of, I gave my last reference to the 6th chapter of Gita, what yogi yunjita satatam. The yogis engaged constantly, or in the verse that we're on right now, avyavachinna yoga, constant engagement in yoga. What's the result? Agni, yoga agni, dagdha karma malashaya. So all of this mala that we're aspiring for, all these dirty things in the consciousness and the heart, they're all burned to fire by this continuous practice of yoga, avyavachinna. And satatam kirtayantomam, our constant practice of yoga is glorifying the Supreme Lord, chanting his holy name. And by that practice, then all the dirty things are burned to ashes. Lots of fire references. Bhava, the fire of material existence, that fire we want to put out, and the fire of yoga we want to stoke and burn all of our karmic reactions. So one fire is serving us, and one fire is to be put out. But in any case, the ultimate goal here is serving the senses of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by so doing, the hridroga, Ashram Maharaj in our class this morning was describing how that was the end point of Rasa Panchadhyaya, was that when you hear these pastimes from a bona fide source, from the spiritual master, then the lust within the heart, the disease within the heart is destroyed, is finished. And then one comes to the platform of serving Krishna. So that's our aspiration here, to transfer from serving the senses to serving Krishna. And then malashaya, all of that dirtiness within the heart is burned to ashes. And what was it? A point earlier, ever increasing. Let's see, I'll just find it. Anyway, maybe I won't find it, but it said that Utkala is experiencing expanded more and more. Here it is. It's in the verse itself. He's situated in transcendental bliss, and he continued always in that blissful existence, which expanded more and more. So we have in material existence, we have the law of diminishing returns. Everything decreases more and more. And in his practice of devotional service, the transcendental bliss expands more and more. So, Guru Maharaj, if you have something more.
Following up on what you said, Yatad Hamsi Samid Hognir, Basmasad Guru Terjana, Gyanagni Dagda Karmani, Basmasad Guru Teta, Yigani Sadrisham Pavitram Yavidjite Tatswayam Yoga Sang Siddha Kalenat Manipindati. Just as a fire burns to ashes everything supplied to it, so the fire of devotional service finally, transcendental knowledge, destroys all the Dagda Karma. It burns up all past karma. Nahi Gyanin Sadrisham Pavitram. There's nothing as pure as devotional service or transcendental knowledge. Tatsvayam Yoga Samsiddha Kalenatmani Bindati. And the person who becomes mature in devotional service realizes this in due course of time. Hare Krishna.
Thank you much. And in the Ajamil pastime, we also had that verse that not only cutting down to the ground level, but burning the roots. So a lot of these burning references.
Hermani near the Hatikan Tuja Bhakti. Yes, Swamjoti Prabhu.
I was thinking, even in the first prayer, Samsara Dava, we need spiritual master and the spirit master will destroy all the fire of material existence for a devotee if he surrenders.
Yes, thank you. I think there was something in the chat. I can't see from here.
Yes, Maharaj. Saraswati Mata says, Pranams Param Puja Maharaj and all the Vaishnavas. The verses list the liberation as nirvana, which isn't the nirvana associated with Buddhism. But I was reading the following in Bhagavatam 2:3:12. Thus, Bhakti Yoga, being the only means of God realization, is called Kaivalya. Srila Jiva Goswami quotes the Vedic version, Eko Narayano Devaha. Paravaranam Parama Aste Kaivalya Sangitaha. In this connection, and establishes that Narayan, the personality of Godhead, is known as Kaivalya, and the means which enables one to approach the Lord is called the Kaivalya Pantha, or the only means of attainment of Godhead. So we hear that the Kaivalya liberation, merging into Brahmajyoti, is hellish for the devotees of Krishna. But here, Kaivalya is the only means of approaching and attainment of Narayan. So I'm not sure how Kaivalya is recommended.
We appropriate these terms. Nirvana is supposed to be snuffing out of all individual identity, but when you can say we appropriated or we already owned it, when we have the Vaishnava explanation, then it's a different thing. So Kaivalya also, Narakayate, it's hellish, as generally conceived, absolute impersonal merging. But when Kaivalya is taken to be absolute unalloyed interest in devotional service, then it's supremely blissful. And it's exactly the opposite of the Kaivalya that the impersonalists have in mind. So we have this sort of all over the place where when they use the term, they mean one thing, but when we use the same term, we have something entirely different in mind.
Mukti also, we define Mukti as having like a 2.10.6 Sarupena Vyavasthiti. And Mukti means for other people, I mean, is something
It means, again, nirvana. We get free from our ego. We no longer have any personal existence. We merge with the Supreme. And that's mukti. And after mukti, there's nothing more. But our mukti is swarupena vyavasthiti, vitvanyata rupam, to give up everything else and be purely engaged in devotional service. So yeah, that's another good example. Mukti, moksha, the same thing. Their idea of moksha and our idea of moksha are entirely different. They have liberation, but after liberation, then what? So they don't have a clear picture. But the Vaishnavas have, what would you say, a postdoc in moksha. They know what comes after moksha. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, perhaps someone there would like to read?
Yes, Mayapur Chandra
Yes.
Prabhu.
Number 13.
We're on text 10.
Or 1310.
Jadan badilon matamo.
No.
Jadan badilon mat muk akakritiran anmati lakshita pativalana prasanta sirivanana. Jadanda badilon matta Mukakrute Taranmati Lakshita Patibalanam Vasantar Sirivanala.
Yes.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai. Utkala appeared to be to the less intelligent persons on the road to be foolish, blind, dumb, deaf, and mad. Although actually he was not so. He remained like fire covered with ashes without blazing flame. Purpose. In order to avoid contradiction, botheration, and unfavorable situations created by materialistic persons, a great saintly person like Jayadvaita or Utkal remains silent. The less intelligent consider such saintly persons to be mad, deaf, or dumb. Actually, an advanced devotee avoids speaking with persons who are not in devotional life. But to those who are in devotional life, he speaks in friendship, and he speaks to the innocents for their enlightenment. For all practical purposes, the whole world is full of non-devotees, and so one kind of a very advanced devotee is called Bhajananandi. Those who are Goshtyanandi, however, preach to increase the number of devotees, but even such preachers also avoid opposing elements who are unfavorably disposed towards spiritual life.
Yes. Would you like to say something?
So this is also a great quality for a devotee, where they would avoid unnecessary interaction with the people which is not meaningful, not useful to them, not useful to us. So I have heard from one of the senior devotees that we have to be very selective. Like even when we try to go for preaching, when people are not interested, we shouldn't really invest our energy. If they don't make any eye contact, if they don't show any any interest, they see they behave as if we don't exist. We really don't have to really go out of the way. It would only increase their kind of offenses, or they on their part, rather than getting some sukruti, they will end up getting some negative value. So we have to be, and this is a very kind of I think a great quality for a devotee to be uninterested, right? In everything which is not connected with the Lord. That's the great. I would say only a Mahabharata can act on this platform. Most people would be tempted to do otherwise. Thank you.
Yudhishthira Maharaj also, after he gives up the throne, he gives up his royal dress and becomes like that, dumb and rule of the world. He gives up everything and adopts a similar role. Indifferent, and not only indifferent but uninterested. You see that actually sometimes ordinary people, they're uninterested in what their friends are doing and everybody else is doing. That can be an advantage for spiritual life. If they come in touch with devotees, they're already uninterested in, like Narad Muni, he wasn't interested in playing with the children and all of that kind of stuff. So if someone is a little something of an outsider, something of a an outsider. Well, maybe that may be his good fortune if he comes in touch with devotees. Otherwise, he just becomes something else, some other kind of aberrant personality. But in any case, here we find that why should I care about these materialistic way of life, and better just shut myself up and have nothing to do with these people. Let them think that I'm mad, that I'm deaf, that I'm dumb, that I'm this, that I'm that, and that I don't have to deal with them. Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj also didn't take that tactic, but he was living in the places where nobody would want to go, doing his bhajan there, just to avoid the foolishness of the materialistic people. But it's interesting that Prabhupada brings in this verse about the Madhyamadikari. Although we're hearing about a Mahabhagavata, Prabhupada brings in that a Madhyamadikari sees four kinds of people. He makes friends with the devotees. He has love for the Lord. He makes friends with the devotees of the Lord. He preaches to the innocent, and he avoids the demonic or those who are opposed. So although the verse is, the example is the Mahabhagavata, Prabhupada brings in the Madhyamadikari.
Maharaj, can I say something?
Yes.
Srila Prabhupada in the Bhagavad Gita, at the end, they said, the Lord Krishna is saying very clearly, this should not na tapas krai, na bhaktai, right? People are most merciful, but the devotees of the Lord, he says that, they really, they try to preach, and they go, so he is actually, something, Paramahamsa, like he says that the devotees of the Lord will still try, they are more merciful than Lord. So obviously he's a Mahabhagavad, but like his compassion is. I remember one of the pastime, one of the the senior type of Srila Prabhupada was mentioning that they were sharing their experience with Srila Prabhupada, how did the preaching go, and Maharaj was saying that some lady was putting the fingers in his ear. Then Srila was like, then what did he do? He said, what should have you done? You should have pulled out the finger and speak into her ears, So that's the kind of the compassion, the greatness of Srila Prabhupada, that he wants to even go with.
Ishran, merciful to the innocent.
Unparalleled, uncomparable position of Srila Prabhupada. He's kind of.
Yes. Indefatigable preaching spirit, without which we would have been numbered and could have just done this bhajan, but Gosjana, taking pleasure in spreading the glories of Krishna and uplifting the fallen souls.
Saraswati Mata brings up the point, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu avoided directly meeting pounds and shillings people, including King Prataparudra, who was actually a pure devotee, in order to teach that sannyasis should avoid this. But Srila Prabhupada met people from all walks of life to spread the movement. So how to understand these pastimes?
Yes. Right. To spread the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhupada would meet with so many fools, because if you're not willing to meet with fools and rascals, there'll be nobody left. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could at least meet with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Prakashananda. Where do we find even such people, to say nothing of groups and that and so on? So, Prabhupada. I was just reading today, was it in Krishna Kadamrita Bindu, someplace? I was there at Prabhupada's disappearance, original disappearance observance, and a leading sannyasi from Gaudiya Math was invited to speak. And he made the unfortunate remark that, yes, I could have also had many disciples if I'd been interested in having disciples who were hippies. So it was not a very much appreciated remark, but it was also true that you're a great scholar and you're this or that, but you're not ready to extend yourself to the most fallen souls. And Prabhupada was. You stayed in Vrindavan and you did whatever you did, but Prabhupada went all over the world to uplift people with no background, no sukriti to speak of, out of compassion, purnaya. So it was true. He could have also, but he didn't, and Prabhupada did. And that was Prabhupada's, one aspect of Prabhupada's greatness.
I was also reading in Madhya Lila where Mahaprabhu wouldn't even eat at the house of someone who wasn't chanting 64 rounds. So that leaves our ability to eat at many devotee houses very limited prospects of where you can even honor prasad.
The principles observed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were even by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. If you read the rules he gave for his ashramites, we're not able to follow those rules. It's a different time, a different place, and different set of people. The Prabhupada was willing to adjust in order to serve the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Maharaj, I'm reminded of an exchange between Srila Prabhupada and your godbrother Madhudvisha Prabhu, where a similar conversation took place, and Prabhupada very humbly said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very strict. I cannot be so strict and get this movement, keep this movement going. So perhaps there are some devotees there who would like to lead kirtan.
Yeah, time has come. You want to lead kirtan? Okay, you're on. It's my opportunity.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare,
Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare
I Om Vishnupad Purnam Supankrajacharya Stotra Satashi Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Tham Ki Jai Navdeep Tham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Maharaj, and thank you to all the devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj Ki Jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande.